to Behind the Scrum, the podcast where we talk about real life of nursing students, the struggles, the laughter, the real stories, and everything in between. I remain your humble host, Anima Shang Khadija. Today's episode, we'll be introducing an invited guest, a person of nurse Olabode Olamide. Welcome to the show. Could you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hi everyone, I'm student nurse Olabode Olamide. I'm a lover of rice. I'm a very picky eater with food, and I'm very enthusiastic about learning, reading in particular, learning new things. Those are my perks. Thank you.
Olabode Olamide. Could you briefly share your childhood experience and what influenced your decision in choosing nursing as a career?
Well, my childhood experience wasn't exactly fun, but I miss those times where we get things very affordable.
Mhm.
Like I get 20 naira as my allowance or 15 naira, and then I'm able to get things I need without having to break a sweat. And as for what influenced my decision in choosing nursing, there are other decisions there, but a major factor is my mother.
Moving on today's discussion, Miss Olabode Olamide will be speaking on the silent signs your body gives before illness.
First of all, I'd like to thank the host of Behind the Scrubs, in person of Nameless Animasha and Khadija, for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. Now, I'd like to ask a question to everyone listening, and the question goes thus. Now, have you ever noticed a symptom or ignored a symptom because you thought it was nothing? Now, most of us must have done this several times, including me. It could be maybe a headache that keeps coming back. It could be twitching of your eyelid muscles or or the muscles of your limbs. It could also be frequent or unusual tiredness. Most of us have done this at a point or the other. But one important truth about health is most serious illnesses they rarely start loudly. Rather, they come as subtle warning signs before they become serious illness. Now, what is the challenge here? The challenge here is that we often ignore these signs. So I'm here to talk briefly about these signs and how we can address them or know what they stand for. Now, our bodies are very intelligent systems and structures. When something begins to go wrong internally, they try to alert us through these small changes, and they may appear as frequent urination or excessive thirst. It could be twitching of the eyelid muscle, changes in the skin and the nail beds. It could be persistent tiredness or frequent headache. Now, these signs may actually seem as something minor, but they are just the early warning signs for our body system. For example, persistent fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. Most often we link this to stress, but it could be signs of underlying conditions like chronic infections, heart diseases, or anemia. Another example is frequent headaches. Now, this could be as a result of stress or dehydration, but repeated headaches might be associated with high blood pressure, which is often known as the silent killer. Now, if I should throw a question and ask, how many of us have checked our blood pressure, or when last have we checked our blood pressure? We'll notice even we as youths, we don't often check it unless a situation that is serious requires us to check it. Now, blood pressure is often a silent killer. We should note that. Now, some people also notice excessive thirst and frequent urination. Now, this is a sign that you may be having conditions such as diabetes. Now, what happens during this process is diabetes includes the body building up so much glucose in the bloodstream, and the body's way of trying to get rid of this excess glucose is by frequent urination, which is why you see some people say, "Oh, I'm urinating. When I urinated finish, I noticed ants gathering it." It feels like, "Oh, is that sugar in the urine? That's the excess glucose we are urinating out of the body system." And by urinating frequently, we are getting dehydrated, and that's where the excessive thirst come in. So those two go hand in hand. We could also notice other things like eyelid twitching. Now, this eyelid twitching may be the body just telling you, "Oh, I need rest," probably due to stress, or it could be, "Oh, lack of sleep," or too much of caffeine, as we used to do nowadays, just because we don't want to sleep, want to work overnight, and the rest. Now, sometimes the body also shows signs through the nails and subtle changes in the skin. It could be in your nail bed. For example, me now, I have a white patch on my nail bed. This can signify that, oh, I'm probably lacking a particular nutrient, um, or swelling in the feet, wounds that refuse to heal. These are just trying to tell us that, oh, bloods are not circulating. It just signifies poor circulation of blood in the body. Now, many people often ignore these signs, probably because they seem very small or temporary, or because they are too busy. And some other people rely on self medication, or some people just even hope that these symptoms will just disappear on their own, or they'll go on their own, or they'll go on their own. But ignoring these signs can silently lead to progression of these diseases.
Okay, Miss Colabody, you said frequent urination is are the signs of diabetics. But when we go to the hospital, we are being told by the doctors or the nurses that we should take more water so as to flush out our toxins, the toxins in our body. So are you telling me that taking more water and flushing the toxin, like, does it mean frequent, like if I take more water and I'm urinating frequently, does it mean I have a diabetes or what?
Okay, so first of all, each condition, like I mentioned earlier, diabetes has its own symptom that makes me link it. So each of them have their signs and symptoms that make me link them to each of these um, silent signs that the body shows us, as I've mentioned earlier. For example, now I'm not saying we taking too much water or we taking water and urinating frequently is going to make us have diabetes. What I'm just simply trying to say is that diabetes is like frequent urination in the sense that a person that has diabetes has excess glucose in the bloodstream. Now, the body is trying to get rid of this glucose, which is what is making them frequently urinate. Now, if I was to put it in this sense now, we could say, oh, someone that takes excess water, some people might even take up to 4 bottle water a day and they just urinate once. And some people they will take just a little amount of water and then they will urinate frequently or they urinate often. Are we going to say their body has issues or something? Or are we going to say, oh, they are not healthy or they have other underlying conditions? What I'm just trying to say in this place is that the frequent urination you are having could be as a result of your body trying to expel the excess glucose. And even if we are to look deeply into it, we look at the color of the urine, it is amber. In this case, I mentioned a linkage between the excess urination and dehydration. Obviously, when you are dehydrated, the color of your urine is not going to be clear. It is going to be conk, that is deep yellow. But in a case where you mentioned where you are drinking enough water,
Yeah.
when you urinate, you will notice that your urine is very clear, like you are passing out plain fluid that comes out with the toxins. So they are very unrelated cases, two different cases. So a simple illustration of everything I've said so far is that you should think of our lives like the warning light of a car dashboard. When that small light comes on, it doesn't mean the car is like the engine has totally failed. It just means there is something in that engine that needs attention. Now, the same is for our bodies. Our bodies work that way. Those pain, those fatigue, those unusual changes, they're just the body's warning light telling us to check what's going on. Now, whether you work in a healthcare setting or whether you're just someone who wants to stay healthy, one important habit is to pay attention to your body. I would like to leave everyone with a simple reminder. Our bodies communicate with us every day. So the problem is not that the body fails to send signals, but rather the problem is sometimes we fail to listen. So the next time your body whispers through fatigue, pain, or unusual changes, take a moment to pay attention because most times the body whispers before it screams. Now, thank you once again to the host of Behind the Scrubs for having me.
Thank you for sharing an insight on today's episode, Miss Olabode Olamide. And it's a wrap for today's episode of Behind the Scrub. Thank you for listening, learning, and laughing with us. And don't forget, behind every pair of scrub is a story worth telling. See you next time.